Well, good afternoon, folks. This is Rich Nugent. Glad you're joining this call from Washington, D.C. Uh, we try to do this every week when I'm up in D.C. to try to reach out and hear from our folks back home. So if you'd like to ask a question or leave or make a comment, just press 0 on your phone. You'll go to a live operator. Danielle is standing by to take your call so we can get you into the queue. I would love to hear from you. It doesn't matter, what the question is. Obviously, we'd rather keep it on what's going on up in Washington, D.C., but we want to hear your input and what you think we should be doing up here to get this country moving in the right direction. Once again, I appreciate you for joining this call. If you'd like to, for those just joining us, just press 0 on your phone. You'll go right to Danielle, who's a live operator, who will get you into the queue so we can hear your ideas, your thoughts on what's going on in Washington, D.C., and particularly what's going on in this country as we move forward. So once again, just press 0 on your phone. You'll go right to our live operator, Danielle, and she will get you in the queue. But we're back up here in D.C. We're trying to move along to move legislation along, actually, to help create jobs in America. And unfortunately, it's kind of hit a snag over in the Senate. But once again, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, just press 0 on your phone. You go right to Danielle, who is standing by to take your call. So we'll go to our first caller. Here we go. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are we doing, sir?
Not too bad. My question is, what are some of you senators and congressmen, well, not just a few of you, the whole gang, whether you be Democrat or Republican, somebody's got to know that our country is going to, crap.
Right.
So when is somebody going to have enough gumption to start saying something to this president and telling him no, and making him stand up and do something that is right?
Right. Well, I don't disagree with you, and you, I think, have hit it on the head. We're the House of Representatives, where I serve, is one half of 1/3 of the government, and we are constantly trying to hold the president's feet to the fire, and the way we do that is through committee hearings, calling the administration forward, asking them tough questions, trying to get to the bottom of issues, and we get stonewalled an awful lot. We've held Eric Holder in contempt. We've done the same thing with Lois Lerner in regards to them stonewalling Congress and getting us information. But part of our biggest stonewall is over in the Senate, and that's Harry Reid. We passed a number of bills that have been sent over to the Senate, some very, very bipartisan, where we received, 400 votes out of 435. I don't think you can get much more bipartisan than that. And those would help create jobs in America. And, Harry Reid just blocks it. And there's no way to move it forward if Harry Reid doesn't open the gate and allow those types of things to move forward. I heard an interesting comment yesterday. We one congresswoman here, I think on one appropriation bill, she filed 29 amendments, and on one appropriation bill brought forward, and I think in all of this year, Harry Reid's only allowed 20 Republican amendments on any bill that's been brought forward over in the Senate. And so it's kind of a difference. The House takes the approach that we want to get input from everybody. It is about getting input, because good ideas don't necessarily happen on any given side, but it's good to have that discussion on the floor of the House, and we look at things a little differently. So what we're doing, folks, if you just join and press 0 on your phone, you'll go right to an operator who will get you into the queue. We'd like to hear from you as to what you think is important, what you think we should be doing differently, or if you agree with what we're doing. Please press 0 and go right to that operator. So we're going to go to our next question. Here we go.
like to know what it is that we're supposed to do. I can't afford the health care insurance that President Obama has put out there. I can't afford anything that would actually work for my family. And anything that is affordable absolutely has no services.
Right.
I just wonder what it is, what's going to happen to me because I can't afford the insurance and I refuse to pay for something I can't use and it does no good. What's going to happen to me?
Did you have insurance before this?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, you know, and this is the amazing thing is the Affordable Health Care Act, you know, that President Obama pushed forward was supposed to help folks just like you. And what we're saying is that, and I've heard the exact same things, is that, you know, people that make, you know, X amount of dollars may not qualify for the subsidy, and so you're still without insurance. And when you look at the insurance, I think this is your point, is to buy insurance that, you know, the deductibles are so high that you could never afford to pay the deductible is just, you know, is folly to think that that's a good thing. This whole affordable health care issue has been, you know, nothing less than it's not affordable. There was nothing put in place to make health care more affordable, like opening up competition across state lines, so you know we can get the best prices no matter where the insurance is offered. It's about allowing, you know, small employers to band together and offer, you know, group rates to their employees, whereas, you know, small employers, you know, with 15, 20 employees can't afford to go out and get insurance or provide insurance for their employees. It's about, you know, tort reform and trying to drive down the cost of medical care, which goes towards the cost of insurance. It's all those things that were never even talked about and put forward because, unfortunately, the Affordable Health Care Act, there were no amendments allowed from the Republicans. You know, I think you just heard me say that, you know, we just allowed, you know, 29 amendments from a member of Congress from Texas, a Democratic member of Congress in Texas, on just one bill. And in the Senate, they've only allowed 20 Republican amendments in the whole year. So that's the problem. And you get bad legislation when you don't allow both sides to have input into the final outcome. And we see that across the board. And we're hearing more and more complaints just like what you had talked about in regards to being unable to afford insurance. And if you can afford it, you're just really not happy with the limitations placed upon it. You know, particularly in Florida, if you have cancer and you want to go to a particular hospital that specializes in cancer, well, guess what? This Affordable Health Care Act has blocked you out of going to those hospitals. And I just think that's truly doing a disservice to people who need insurance the most and who need treatment with life-threatening issues. So until we, you know, get a better handle on this, you know, it's not going to get better. We've tried to, you know, amend the Affordable Health Care Act, and actually they have amended it 6 times, but we've had, you know, 40-plus votes on other ideas in trying to fix the Affordable Health Care Act, and all of those have been just flatly rejected by the Senate. They didn't even bring them up to vote on them. So we're going to go to our next caller. Once again, folks, if you just joined us, press 0 on your phone. You'll go to a live operator and we'll get you into the queue. We'd like to hear what you have to say about issues up in D.C. Here we go.
Hello. Good afternoon. I'd like to know if you believe that recent elections is an indication that the American public is totally fed up with a do-nothing Congress, and they're going to vote the current Congress out regardless of who's running.
We have not seen that, but what we have seen is that, and it's particularly in primaries where I'll talk from the Republican side, is that, you know, people believe, and the latest one with Eric Cantor was that he wasn't spending enough time back home in his district. He wasn't, you know, working, you know, for the people that elected him. And, he was trying to do the right thing for the party and trying to help candidates, Republican candidates that were running and those that were in office to, to raise money, to, be able to stay in office. But at the end of the day, he took his eye off the ball, and that really is all elections, all politics are local. And end of the day, you've got to be involved in that process so people, know what you stand for, and they want to hear what you think. And they want to see you out at, the grocery store. They want to see you at different events. They want to see it stuff not just political events. They want to see you at other events, so they can bump into you, talk to you, and see that you're a real person, that you really care about the people that you serve. And so I think Eric Cantor took his eye off the ball on that. And when you say do nothing Congress, I would suggest to you that that's not the case. It's the case in Congress collectively when you include the House and the Senate. But when the House has passed hundreds of bills that go to the Senate and they're never, ever brought up on the Senate floor for any consideration, whether to pass it, to vote it down, or to amend it and send it back to the House for further consideration. When that doesn't occur, then you have a Congress that doesn't work. Then you have a Congress that isn't actually listening to the people. And the American people don't get to hear the arguments in opposition or in favor if it's on the Senate floor. And that's where that argument should take place, so people can hear, why a particular senator is for something or against it. And, it gives you an opportunity then to make a decision and say, maybe I agree with that guy or maybe I don't. But when they absolutely don't move things to the floor of the Senate, that's when I think Congress is broken. And so, there's a lot of different viewpoints on that. That just happens to be mine. Once again, folks, if you're just joining us, press 0 on your phone. You'll go right to our live operator, Danielle, who's standing by to take your call. So we want to hear from you and what you think. So let's go to our next caller. Here we go.
Hello, this is Barbara. I wanted to make a comment, not really ask a question. I want to know why we continue to borrow money to send it to other countries when we are putting our children and our grandchildren and probably our great-grandchildren in debt.
No. Well, I absolutely agree with you. We spend $60 billion sending it overseas to mostly to folks that don't like us, will never like us. And I've said this before, one of the things I learned a long time ago when my dad told me is you can't buy friends. That goes back to, remember when you went to school and you would give somebody something in your lunch because you want them to like you. And I can remember being disappointed when that didn't happen, and that's when my dad had that conversation with me and saying, hey, Rich, you can't buy friendship. Friends are people that you have mutual interests, mutual respect for each other. You have the same values and that others have. That's how you really you get friendships. And we're trying to buy our way into it. And you're absolutely right. Here we are spending $60 billion. That the majority of it is borrowed money when we shouldn't be doing that. We really need to start looking back here at home. I put a piece of legislation through to reduce just by 1%, to reduce it by 1%, to actually offset the cost for our veterans when, the Senate and the House voted to cut certain veteran benefits. We put a piece of legislation that said, hey, listen, let's just take 1% away from those countries that don't like us, never will, and how about if we use it for people who have fought for this country? Novel approach. Hasn't received a whole lot of traction, but we're going to keep fighting that fight because I think we need to absolutely do what is necessary for the American people first. And until we start doing that, I don't see how we get past where we're at. And we can cut around the edges on all the things that we've cut. We've cut substantial spending, but the areas that we're cutting account for less than 30% of the actual money spent by this federal government. Until we start talking about those other areas that are just on automatic pilot and keep increasing, and they're considered mandatory spending, nothing is going to change, or continue to, borrow money at an unbelievable rate. So let's go to our next caller. Here we go. And if you just join us, just press 0 on your phone. You'll go right to a live operator. Get you in the queue. Here we go. Hello? Hello? Well, it looks like we lost that caller. Let's go to our next caller. Here we go. Well, we're having a little lull here. I don't know if the computer is fighting me on this, folks. I love technology when it works, but I have one of those little hourglasses when I just clicked on the button to allow it to talk, and it's just rotating around and around. Not so good. Okay, we're going to try another, folks. Here we go. Let's go to our next caller.
Mr. Nugent, this is
Hi.
Charles Stambaugh.
How you doing, sir?
Good. First of all, I'd like to give you a little encouragement about the future. I've called you before about Richard Tamarisi, the guy that's stuck in Mexico, and you're the only one that gave me a reply. Your office did, and I congratulate you on listening to your constituents, and you give me a real enthusiasm about the future. I agree with everything you've said so far, especially getting rid of Harry Reid has been a really, really bad problem. It's not a do-nothing Congress, it's a do-nothing Harry Reid.
That's true.
Well, he's tried to block everything, and some of the things he says terribly nasty. I know health care is going to be hard to unwind, and I'm a veteran, and I'm in the VA right now, so I decided to call because I might not have too much time left, you know. But I guess my question really is to you, in the future, I'm a big Rand Paul guy for president. Okay. And I think we should start now with whoever we choose as a candidate, whether it be Paul or somebody else. But how can we go about endorsing candidates, good, strong candidates with a degree of morality, right, without it seems like the Republican Party is attacking itself. Right. And I don't think House divided will fall. And I was wondering if you had any ideas for me personally, because I do go out and place signs and talk to people, but how do we go about it without tearing down our own party?
No, I agree with what you're saying, and you know, it's probably the most frustrating part is when we see members of the same party turn against themselves. And you know, I've made the statement before, we tend to eat our own, which doesn't make sense. But one of the areas you can do, and one that gets some notice, is actually send a letter to the editor of your local newspaper, and those get published, and you have an opportunity then to influence other readers in regards to thoughts that you may have, and it's like yourself, actually getting involved and listening to those that are going to run. Right now it's there's a lot of people, I think, jockeying or trying to get in a position. Do I run for president or don't I run for president? And so they're making noise out there. But of those that are out there doing it, is there somebody out there that maybe hasn't yet come forward? I don't know. But of those that are making noise about potential runs for president, is really go online and look up information about them, see if you agree with their stances. Do they have the same values and morals that you do? You haven't been a veteran. To me, it's been important to me that we would have somebody that would have some connection to the military in their service to and wanting to be the commander in chief. I got 3 kids, all serving the United States Army, 2 active duty, 1 Army, Florida Army National Guard Black Hawk pilot. I'd kind of like to know that they have an idea of what our service members, go through, the sacrifices that their families go through. We've had our kids deployed multiple times to Iraq and Afghanistan and other places. One just got back from a deployment to Africa. And I want to make sure that our commander-in-chief has some ideas in regards to, what it's actually like to serve. The other thing is, personally, I'd like to know that they have some business ideas, and they've actually, signed the front of a paycheck, not just back of the paycheck to cash a check. So it's all those types of things, and then just like I said, letters to the editor in regards to things that you think are going right, things that you think are going wrong, and just giving your viewpoint out there. That is, to me, the easiest way to get that out in the public view. So we're going to go to our next caller. Here we go.
Oh, Mr. Nugent.
How you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
It seems like our government can't get anything done, and I know it's party lines. It has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if we was to put term limits on all congressmen, senators, all representatives, and everybody, say a 2-term limit, where there was not going to be no more career politicians.
Right.
I think that would solve a lot of problems, because it seems to me like after a person becomes elected, they start campaigning for their next election that they can make sure that they can stay in their present or better position.
Right.
And it's kind of like politicians are a different breed of American compared to the rest of us out there who've got the daily struggles. But once a politician gets into office, he's got it made, more or less.
Yeah.
He's got time to play a lot of golf, campaign, go around the country and see things, and all this is all at the expense of the taxpayer.
Right.
The people that put him into office are expecting him to do something for them, for all of them, not just the ones that contributed to his campaign. He's in there to represent everybody,
right,
and not just the Republicans or the Democrats. He's in there to represent the American people.
You're right.
And I think we've gotten way far away from that. I think there's just too much. I'm going to take care of me first, and the hell with the rest of you.
Right.
What do you think about
that? Well, I certainly don't disagree with what you're saying. We tried to limit benefits. I've put this piece of legislation forward, in every Congress and every year. Now this is, I'm into the end of my second term, and we've put forward a piece of legislation to every year to limit the benefits that members of Congress receive on the House side, because that's the only area that we can limit. We don't even get it up for a vote. It's about, taking away some of the benefits that members of Congress receive, because I agree with you. A lot of these guys come up here and they spend 30, 40, 50 years up here. I really think they get way out of touch with their constituents back home. Now, they keep getting reelected, I think, just because of their name recognition. But at the end of the day, it's more about once you get up here, getting, because you got to do X amount of years, and your retirement grows for every year that you serve. You get a little, larger percentage of retirement. The same thing holds true with, prior to, Obamacare coming, the paid for health care. All those types of things we tried to put a limit on, because I truly believe that, if you can limit those things, you'll go back to what our founding fathers thought was the fact that, hey, listen, we want to, have citizens that come up and serve, and it's not a career. I had a career in law enforcement. That was my career. And I term limited myself when I ran for my third term. I came out and said when I ran for my third term, that was my last term. And people said, well, that's stupid. You shouldn't say that. And at the end of the day, I just thought that after 3 terms or 12 years in office, that's enough, and that people have a right to elect someone else that, has fresh ideas, has a different perspective, and it's just good for the way any organization runs. And I believe the same would hold true here. The problem is to do actual term limits, we have to do a constitutional amendment. And I took to the House floor a constitutional amendment on the balanced budget, if you remember back a couple years ago. And I had controlled an hour of time and argued for it and got the rule passed that allowed us to consider it on the floor, but ultimately, it didn't pass. We couldn't even pass a balanced budget amendment. So to think that we could get these guys or gals up here to actually do something, it's and limit their terms, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be in the right direction. That's for sure. We're looking at ways to try to improve, it for everybody, and not just for Democrats, Republicans. But how about all? And the caller just mentioned, how about all the American people? And I think that's when you start putting that in that context, and you try to make the best choices for everybody. We'll go to our next caller. Here we go. Hello.
Thank you for having this phone conversation and opportunity to speak with you. I'm a strong believer in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and
yes,
I feel that the government should be of, by, and for the people. So my question to you is, and what are you doing to have Congress people and senators on the same health care plan that the rest of the country is on? I think it's sort of a pathetic situation that you're not. How can you understand where the rest of the citizens are, et cetera? So that's briefly my question.
Good question. But I will tell you that we are on the exact same Obamacare plan. I didn't take the federal health insurance when I got elected, and never did, because I actually, didn't think it was appropriate that the federal government would subsidize my health care. I stayed on the plan when I retired from the sheriff's office. It is not subsidized by the sheriff's office. We have to pay the going rate for that plan, which was 3 times higher than what I would have paid if I had accepted the federal government's health insurance. But, last year, all members of Congress last year had to go on Obamacare, and my staff. Now, I have the opportunity, I guess, to opt my staff out of it, and I refuse to do that just because of what you said. I didn't have any, vote on the Affordable Health Care Act. I wasn't here when that passed. But at the end of the day, that is the law, and I think you're absolutely right. Members of Congress should abide by it, and they do today have to abide by the Affordable Health Care law, and so do all of my employees, both back in the district and up here in Washington, D.C., have to be on Obamacare, and that's the law. And you don't have to like the law, but, I've enforced the law for 38 years, and some, you don't always have to like what you're enforcing, but it is the law, and you're supposed to enforce it. That was my job as sheriff, and it's my job as a member of Congress to, follow the law as it relates to everybody, not just, a select few. So I agree with the caller, though, but we have made that a fact that we've done that. So we're going to go to our next caller. Here we go.
Yes, Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing real good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, and thank you for your service,
Thank you.
both as a sheriff and as a congressman. I liked your term limits. That was interesting. But to the point, I know exactly how you can get the Senate, cure the problem you were just talking about earlier, and I can tell you how you can do it. Very easy. And I can tell you if you don't do it, what will happen. Here's what you have to do, I believe. It's going to be tough to get Boehner to do this. I know that. But what you've got to do is promise. If you get the Senate, you can get a bill through that within 2 years or 3, depending, you will get rid of the IRS. That's not the first part of it. The second part is if you don't, the Democrats are going to use it against you. It scares me what they're doing to America today. and Boehner will not get a committee up against a select committee against it. They fought tooth and nail to get him for the other committee, and he will not do this. And he's a bigger problem, as big a problem as Reed, as far as I'm concerned. What do you think about getting rid of the IRS?
I would agree with you on that. I sponsored the fair tax, if you're familiar with it, because I want to see. We got 74,000 pages of IRS rules that no one can understand except maybe, I guess, if you're a tax attorney. You got an IRS that, it's obviously they have become very, very partisan. It's one of those groups. You always hate the IRS because you don't want to. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than what they owe, and everybody's fearful of the IRS. But then, what has come out. And now the latest revelation is that, all the emails Lois Lerner had, they had a mysterious crash on her hard drive. And, of course, they never told Congress about it when they were asking for all those records. The acting director said no problem, he's going to provide them, knowing full well that they didn't have them. And I don't know, I don't understand why it's so difficult to tell the truth. Listen, if somebody makes a mistake, if it was just a clear mistake that somebody, acted in a way they shouldn't have, then fess up to it. Hold them accountable, discipline them, and then you move forward. And that's how you actually instill confidence of whether, the American public at large or any group is to say, okay, if someone does something wrong, that you correct it, you learn from the mistake, and you fix it. Here, though, the federal government does everything in its power to try to obstruct any investigation. You talked about a select committee on Benghazi that was just appointed. The select committee on Benghazi actually won't hold its first hearing until September sometime because they're trying to hire all the staff that you need to have on both sides, on the minority and the majority side, to do the investigations that are necessary so they can actually have legitimate hearings in regards to what happened with Benghazi. My big thing, and Sheriff, was I always, I wanted to get bad news out. If we did something wrong, if one of our employees did something wrong or the agency did something wrong in general, we always try to do a thorough investigation, but get that word out to the public right away. People tend to understand when somebody makes a mistake. If they commit a crime, then you deal with it. If it was a mistake, then you deal with it. You do the corrective actions you need to take. That's what adds legitimacy back to any organization. And so the fair tax is one way to, you don't need the IRS, or you certainly don't need an IRS that is as large as it is, because you take away all those enforcement mechanisms, because it's very simple. The states would collect the tax or sales tax at the point of contact. Then all you got to do is make sure the states are, remitting those funds forward to the federal government. So you don't need this huge bureaucracy called the IRS and all the other loopholes that they have put in place for people to pay or not pay taxes. It just makes sense. And, particularly when you have an agency that is absolutely out of control. But we got a lot of folks that have worked for the federal government that have done an honorable job in the jobs they had. But then we have some that obviously don't. And we see that with the scandal going on with the VA. We have, thousands of really hardworking employees of the VA, whether it's in medical or the support portion of it. But then we have some real bad actors, and most of them are up at the top level of the administration area of the VA or any other organization. Well, you need to fix that. And this administration has really turned a blind eye to what's not going to work, and they just ignore it. So we're going to go to our next caller. Here we go, folks.
Hello, Congressman.
How you doing, sir?
Thank you for this telephone town hall. There's an ongoing, constant argument about how high taxes should be,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why don't we change the argument to how big the government should be and then determine what tax load has to be to support it? For instance, the Energy Department, as of 2010, costs $38 billion a year in direct cost. It's been an abject failure since it's been instituted during the Carter administration.
Right.
The Education Department, $106 billion a year, an abject failure. From the day it was started, test scores have dramatically decreased each year. The public schools are a total disaster. Why maintain it? Commerce Department, $17 billion a year. Corporate welfare. Agriculture Department, $142 billion a year. The day of the family farmers over. Archer Daniel Midlands doesn't need to be subsidized. The Labor Department, $209 billion a year. I worked for over 40 years and never was contacted by or helped by the Labor Department. What does it do? HUD, $63 billion a year. What it's basically been responsible for is destroying inner cities. Why do we keep putting up with this? Why don't we put the Democrats on the defensive and make them defend these organizations and this expenditure? You can't get rid of it in 1 year, but you could defund it 10% a year for 10 years.
Yeah. Listen, you hit a lot of areas that are diverse within the federal government, and let's just take one, the Education Department. I agree with you. The amount of money that we funnel into the federal government, that some portion of it they'll funnel back to the states. I think the states are in a much better position to make determinations about what works within their state. I think states and local school boards are in a much better position as to decide what works best for their students to get them ready for the workforce. I don't think that you need to have this one-size-fits-all that the federal government always tries to do, and to mandate, compliance the way the federal government operates is, we will give you additional money to the local school districts or to the states themselves in regards to if you implement what the federal government wants you to implement. I mean, I just have an inherent problem with that. I believe the states are in a much better position. I truly believe the school boards and local school districts are in a much better position to educate our children. I've been married. My wife and I've been married 39 years, and of those 39 years, my wife was a public school teacher for 31 of those years. And she would get so frustrated with some of the mandates that came down from the federal government. She'd be one of the first ones to call for the abolishment of the federal education department. Are there some of these departments that start off, I guess, with good intentions, but they have what they do in D.C. is once you start a bureaucracy, it's almost it seems to be almost impossible to get rid of them because you get so many of these people that are more interested in increasing the size of government, increasing legislation or rules as it relates to those agencies, that they forget about what they're supposed to do to serve. It is something that I think that people just have lost sight of. And you hit it on the head. We have way too many agencies working. But once again, like I said, if we eliminated everything on the discretionary side, when you talked about those agencies, even if you eliminated Department of Defense, we're still talking about 27% of our government, of the cost of government. So we got to start looking at paring all those back. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't meet the cost that we're overspending in what we spend every day on those things that are on automatic pilot. And until we start having that conversation, I'm fearful that we're going to continue to be in this deficit spending mode, and it is projected to get worse. We're going to go to our next caller. Here we go.
Hello, Congressman.
How you doing, sir?
My question has to do with the efforts being made to curb big labor's lobby on this and implement a right-to-work law, a national right-to-work law. Where do you stand on that, and do you think it'll help jobs in the long run?
Well, I think if you look at states that have right-to-work laws, they have been growing. Their economies have been growing. If you look at states that have done things to, excuse me, I got fighting the end of a bad cold. But if you look at states that have, gone to the right to work status, like Florida has, and other states that, job growth has increased. They typically are leading the nation in job growth. States that have been very dependent on unionization have seen the decline in jobs, and we see that in decline of their economies of those states. So I think that there is a huge incentive to do that. If you look at, Boeing, moved created a new air plant facility in the Carolinas because they were getting forced out of their union shop up in Washington State. Now, they kept that plant in Washington State, but the union was so insistent on additional demands when Boeing was going to increase production because of the demand for their aircraft had risen. They made a decision that, we'll keep the existing plant in Washington State, but we'll build a new plant that is more friendly towards business, and that is a right-to-work state. So I think that's the trend. You see it in public, as it relates to unions, public unions. And remember, public unions now are the largest union employer in the nation. They're much more, public employers than there are, private company employers that are under unionization. So I think that, this whole thing has gotten kind of backwards in regards to public employees unionizing. But that's where we are. So we're going to go to our next caller. Here we go. Let's go to this caller. Here we go. Good afternoon.
I have a question about, my name is Dave. I have a question about the children that are coming across the border. I would like to know what numbers are coming across and what numbers how many are being returned, and also, is there any type of plan in place as to what they're actually going to do with these children?
Well, let's answer your last question first, because getting older and I forget. Is there a plan? I will tell you, this administration has no plan in regards to what to do with all these children that are coming across the border. We can't even get straight numbers from the government in regards to the number of children that are currently coming across our borders. Now, I've heard numbers range from 60,000 in the next year to over 120,000 children are coming across the border. I know that it is an epidemic right now in Texas and Arizona. You saw what ICE, the immigration agency, did in regards to just loading a bunch of kids up, putting them on a bus and dropping them off in Arizona. If you did that with your kids and just threw them on a bus and dropped them off and nobody to provide for them, you'd go to jail. But the federal government honestly has no plan as to what to do. Part of the problem is that, the administration's stance on immigration, and particularly what they call dreamers, that word's gotten out, to all over Central America. And so, kids are coming by the droves. Their parents are, paying for them, for coyotes to bring them in, coming by the droves to America because they think they're going to get automatic citizenship. And we have not made a strong case. This government knew this was happening. This government obviously knew this was happening. And if they'd taken strong measures right at the beginning and send these children back to their home countries right away, that message would get out, and that would stop most of it, because then they would realize that America's not just a dumping ground, and America's just not going to accept children for any reason at all, because their parents are in a country that isn't providing opportunities for them. That is not America's fault, nor is it its problem. But this administration didn't take a forceful hand and didn't set the right tone in regards to what was going to happen with all these kids when they first started coming across the border. To say they didn't know is ludicrous. That Border and Customs, Homeland Security did not know that issue was going on. So when you ignore it, it only gets worse, folks. And the word is continuing out there, whether it's right or wrong. People think that if they get their kids in the U.S., they're going to be automatically be made American citizens. Now, are parents doing it so then they can follow? With this administration, I wouldn't doubt it. But we have lost sight of what this country is all about, and lost sight about the fact is, this is a country of opportunity, but we also are a country of laws, and we're ignoring the rule of law as it relates to this. And as long as people think there's an easy way to circumvent the law, and this government's doing nothing to show them that it isn't, they're just going to continue. What we're hearing from those on the border, in those border states, they're overwhelmed with this illegal population that's coming across. They're overwhelmed through law enforcement, through the public health systems, through all the systems that are in place. We don't have enough systems in place for those that are here illegally, and now we're stressing that system out for those that are here illegally. And, I saw a member of Congress from New York that now they want to, spend more money to provide legal representation for these children that are here, cross the border illegally, and were dumped here by either, their parents or their country of origin. And until this administration takes a firm hand and actually makes a decision to do what's right, this doesn't get better. I just never see this getting better. And if you hear that I'm frustrated, listen. I spent 38 years of my life enforcing the law, and it's never easy to do the right thing, but you still have to do the right thing. I don't quite understand why we've taken this approach as a country, but this administration certainly has. There's a lot of ideas out there why this president is doing what he's doing, but at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding as to what exactly is going on. I will just tell you that I'm the most disappointed in the administration just because it doesn't seem like we're worried about the rule of law. It doesn't seem like we're worried about consequences to things that we do. What the unintended consequences are when we just don't care about fixing a problem. Then people can come up with all kinds of ideas as to why you don't want to fix it. And some of them may be right and some may be wrong. But at the end of the day, you don't have a cohesive policy as to what's going on with immigration from this administration. It's kind of like we don't have an actual cohesive policy on what we're doing, in the Middle East. We don't have a cohesive policy. What we're doing by sending, 300 advisors in to advise the Iraqis, that's not a policy. That's a tactic in a short-term process. What we don't have is a policy as to what do we expect to accomplish by what we're doing. That's a policy. That's looking long-term. How do you expect to affect the changes that you want? We don't seem to have an effective foreign policy, whether it's regarding, with Russia, with North Korea, with Iran. It's kind of like we're just floating along hoping things are going to get better on their own, and they don't. That's part of what being a leader is about, is being able to articulate what that policy is. Folks, I just got notice that I have to go vote here in just a few minutes, so I have time for one more question. If I don't get to you, stay on the line. You'll go right to voicemail, leave your question in a way that we can respond back to either a telephone number or an email address or a U.S. postal address, because I want to answer everybody's question, and we just are going to run out of time here because votes are coming. So we're going to go to our next caller. Here we go. Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing?
My question was taken by the previous caller, but I have another one.
Okay, go right ahead.
what Brian Terry was a border guard whose untimely murder has never been resolved. Is there any movement afoot to attempt to and I know that this is something near and dear to your heart, to resolve this issue and make someone responsible for this man's murder?
Just for everybody that's not familiar with that, Officer Terry was killed down by the border, and that was reference to Fast and Furious. If you remember right, there's still an ongoing investigation into Fast and Furious. That's where the federal government made a decision to sell guns to bad guys and allow them to what we call law enforcement to walk. One of the things that we never did, and we would never allow to happen, is to sell drugs to somebody and allow them to walk, or to sell firearms to somebody in a sting and allow them to walk. Hopefully, I guess thinking that you're going to somehow build a bigger case. But you never allowed those two things to happen, because both of those, getting out in society and through illegal means, obviously is not good to do. And so I don't know of any law enforcement agency that was doing that. But the federal government made this harebrained idea that this would be a good idea to do. And if anybody knows how the federal agencies work, everything that you do ultimately goes all the way up to Washington, D.C. for final approval. And particularly on something like letting handguns or long guns walk across the U.S. border into another sovereign country. You would have to get approval at the highest levels of the Justice Department, which you would suspect would go all the way up to, the secretary. But they have blocked at every turn our records. So we're sitting here trying to figure out, okay, how do you get to the bottom of it? Now, we've held Holder in contempt. We are, that is in court right now in regards to getting records that we're trying to get as it relates to this particular issue. But think about it. It took us, 5 days ago, we brought in, a suspect was extradited from Mexico back to the United States, but it took 2 years to extradite this guy. There's stuff in the press that would lead you to believe that there's others out there, but this country has absolutely violated Mexico's sovereignty by allowing weapons to walk across the border. Those weapons have killed others, Mexican nationals, to the tune of, from what I've heard, is almost 100 Mexican citizens that those weapons have been used to kill down in Mexico. And we think that they've been used in other murders in the United States as they move back and forth across the border. It's just no one in the government has been disciplined on it. They've done everything to try to withhold information from those investigations, whether it's been Benghazi, whether it's been the IRS, whether it's been Fast and Furious. I get frustrated with the fact that the administration just thumbs its nose and says, listen, we don't have to tell you. Or they get some kind of executive privilege issued by the president that would tend to make you believe that then he would have to know about it if he's the reason why he's exerting some kind of executive privilege over releasing information. So Holder has been held in contempt, and we're currently in court trying to force them to turn over documents on a number of different issues. So as we move forward, it's not dead. It's just not moving fast enough for me, and I would suggest it's not moving fast enough for the American people as to why does it take so long for us to get answers about what we've done. If we've done nothing wrong, then there should be no reason to withhold information from Congress. We have a legitimate oversight. It's constitutional oversight of the executive branch. The difference is that we have, three distinct branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and judiciary, and they're all co-equal. But we have some people that believe the administrative portion, the executive branch, is above everybody else and above the law. I just happen to absolutely disagree with that, because if you read the Constitution, it's very clear in regards to the fact, in the Federalist Papers, in regards to the fact that you have three equal branches of government and not one that is subservient to the other. Folks, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit in on this Tully Town Hall. We do these every week, sometimes more than once, but I want to appreciate your time and listening and asking great questions. Once again, didn't get to you, stay on the line. You'll go to voicemail and leave your phone number or a U.S. postal address or your email address so we can respond back and give you an answer to your question. Thank you so very much, and God bless everybody.